The first thing I noticed was the way her hands trembled around the coffee cup, like she was holding warmth she wasn't sure she deserved anymore. And that was the moment my entire past came rushing back to me in a roadside diner in Ohio, dressed in Christmas lights and quiet loneliness. I had only stopped in to escape the cold and my own thoughts after a double shift at the warehouse, never expecting to see the mother of the woman who once shattered my life sitting alone in a booth, wearing a brave smile that couldn't hide the weight she carried. If this happened to you, if the past suddenly sat across from you without warning, would you walk away to protect old wounds, or would you sit down and risk feeling everything again? Her name was Margaret, and for years she had been the only gentle presence in a relationship that slowly hollowed me out. I had loved her daughter Hannah with a devotion that blinded me to red flags, excusing the distance, the coldness, the way I was always the one apologizing. When Hannah left, she took more than a future with her. She took my sense of worth, leaving me in a tiny apartment with unpaid bills, broken confidence, and nights filled with the hum of regret. Margaret had been the one who called me afterward, apologizing for a daughter's cruelty she couldn't control, reminding me that kindness didn't always come from the people we expect. Seeing her now, alone on a blind date that never showed up, felt like life looping back on itself in the most unexpected way. Margaret's story unfolded slowly as we sat together, not speaking in lines or confessions, but in shared silences heavy with understanding. Her husband Thomas had died 3 years earlier from a sudden heart attack, leaving her with a quiet house and a calendar full of days that no longer meant anything. She had raised her children around church picnics and Sunday hymns, believing love was something you worked for, something you stayed loyal to even when it hurt. Watching her sit there alone, waiting for someone who never arrived, stirred something deep inside me, a question about how many good people spend their lives waiting, believing they are invisible once their usefulness fades. The diner felt like a movie set paused between scenes, the glow of holiday wreaths reflecting off windows, the smell of burnt coffee mixing with nostalgia. I found myself thinking about my own loneliness, the empty holidays, the unanswered messages, the sense that I was drifting through life unseen. Margaret wasn't just my ex's mother in that moment. She was a mirror of what happens when love is given endlessly without guarantee of return. What if this were your future, sitting alone after a lifetime of giving, hoping someone would choose you simply because you existed? Over the next few weeks, our lives quietly intertwined in ways that felt both fragile and inevitable. We met for coffee, then for walks near the river, then for church on Sundays where we sat in different pews at first, unsure of what this connection meant. People noticed the age difference, the unspoken history, the awkwardness of shared pasts. But there was also something pure in the way we healed pieces of each other. Margaret listened to my fears without judgment, and I found myself wanting to protect her from the loneliness she had normalized. Slowly, laughter returned to my life, not the loud, careless kind, but the gentle kind that settles in your chest and stays. The pain didn't vanish easily. There were nights when guilt crept in, reminding me of Hannah, of boundaries crossed, of how love can complicate morality. Margaret carried her own burden, worrying about what people would think, about betraying memories of Thomas, about being judged by her own children. But healing rarely arrives wrapped in social approval. It arrives quietly, in moments when two broken people choose honesty over fear. We talked about faith, about forgiveness, about how God sometimes writes stories that don't fit human comfort, but still carry grace. The moment that changed everything came unexpectedly, on a snowy evening in that same diner where our paths crossed again. Margaret looked tired, smaller somehow, confessing in her own gentle way that she felt like a placeholder in everyone's life, a supporting character who never got a second act. Something inside me broke open then, a realization that love isn't always fireworks and youth. Sometimes it's choosing to stand beside someone when the world forgets them. I reached for her hands, steady this time, and asked her the question that had been building in my heart, not out of impulse but out of a deep certainty that this was where my life was meant to anchor. There was no dramatic reaction, no cinematic gasp, just tears, quiet and real, the kind that cleanse old wounds rather than reopen them. We took our time, months of prayer, conversations with pastors, difficult discussions with family members who struggled to understand. Hannah was furious at first, accusing us of betrayal, forcing me to confront my own lingering guilt. But time softened even that anger, and eventually, understanding replaced resentment, not because it was easy, but because holding on to bitterness only multiplies pain. Marriage didn't erase our scars, but it gave them meaning. We built a life rooted in compassion, volunteering at shelters, opening our home for holidays to anyone who needed a place to belong. I watched Margaret rediscover joy, her laughter filling rooms that once echoed with absence, and she watched me grow into a man no longer defined by abandonment, but by the choice to love bravely despite it. Our story wasn't perfect, but it was honest, and sometimes that's the most sacred thing two people can share. Before the story ends, I want to ask you something quietly and sincerely. Have you ever found yourself judging a situation before understanding the hearts inside it? And if so, what would happen if you chose compassion instead? If this story touched something deep within you, please like, comment, share, and subscribe, but only if it truly moved your heart and reminded you that second chances often arrive in the most unexpected forms.